it's kind of like boxing. I think you just kind of have to keep going unless it's so obvious that it made the crowd feel awkward. But if a joke doesn't work, like it's I heard this metaphor, it's like flying a plane. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to take jump in on this one, I'm interested to see it because I know cancel culture in America.
Hmm.
So cancel culture in the Philippines, I'm really curious about.
Mhm.
Yes.
Hmm. Uh, well, there is cancel culture here, of course.
Yes.
But you get canceled for the weirdest stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like we. I don't know if this is too early for this, but yeah. This age of woke, and all right. So I think the best answer here is more of there are topics you won't dare touch on. I do, but it's not because I don't want to offend someone. It's more of like it. I just personally don't can't write any jokes about it. You know, like
Mm,
I can't possibly think of anything funny about disabled people or
Mhm.
illness,
mhm.
people with illnesses and things like that. But if I do hear a joke about them and it's it sounds pretty funny, I'm not gonna cancel someone for doing it. Uh, so it's just more of like a personal thing. With hecklers, there have been like different kinds of hecklers here. One is the drunk guy. So he's just drunk. You just have to
Mhm.
talk to him and give him a little bit of attention, and that's it. And then uh the offended ones are like the worst. Like before, I had a joke about how awesome our church songs are, because even though if you don't go to church for a long time, you still remember it by heart, right? So,
Mhm.
and then he caught the part of my performance where I was singing the church songs in a very Red Oliero way. So he everybody was laughing, and he thought, and he came in just at that, and then he thought it was super offensive. So
Mhm.
he got up in my face like after I went down from the stage, and then followed me to the backstage before security started picking up that, yo, this guy's harassing one of our performers. So yeah, that happened. So um I think you can curate your topics that you don't want to talk about, but people will find a way, or not
Mhm.
find a way, but people will always have some sort of like way to get offended. Like no matter, like I would I would do jokes about religion, and I would do jokes about politics, and people would get offended. And I could do jokes about myself, my own experiences, and people will get offended still. Like I did a
Mhm.
joke about the band Eraserheads, and I got more negative reactions for that than any of my jokes ever. So you really don't know what topic you're gonna pick. So I think you just gotta stick to, you know, expressing yourself honestly and genuinely.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I think it's all like authenticity. Um, and I think I'm me personally, I'm of the belief that nothing really is off topic. Like when in this line of work, I mean, we're making jokes, and like what Red's saying, even if you see someone and it's like something that's on the line, or it's a really taboo topic. If it's funny, is the comic coming from a place of authenticity? Is it a thoughtful observation? Is it written well? These are the things I appreciate, and I think really, to me, like the mark of a really good comedian is if they can just stay on the line and just dance on that line, and not
Mhm.
not not go overboard, and but at the same time really kind of push it. To me, those are really really good moments, and to me make a really good comedian. And then with hecklers, yeah, I mean, like one thing that I kind of my go to is you just make friends with them, because then you make friends with them, it's easier to tell them to shut up. And that's
True.
one trick. Like, hey, what's your name, man? And then like, yeah, shut the fuck up. That's just one really quick technique. One time, the worst heckler I maybe had was like one guy had a meeting, like literally like dinner meeting sila in the middle of the room.
Oh my god.
And this was in
Wow.
Borough, when we had our Borough gigs, right, in Podium.
Yeah.
We was having a meeting, and it actually worked to my advantage because they were not there for the show, so I just made like 3 or 5 minutes of jokes just about them. The audience was really loving it. They had no idea I was talking about them until like the very end. So it worked to my advantage. So I think that's the main thing dealing with hecklers. Just how can I make this work for me right now?
Mhm.
How can I just still create a joke, squeeze a joke out of it? So that's been my approach.
Yeah, I agree on there's not really anything that I wouldn't touch if I could make it funny. Like I won't find something that's on the line just to be on the line, but if it's a topic that I genuinely think I can have a funny perspective on, then I would do it. But like, and like also like Red was saying, like there's some things that I just think I don't really have an opinion on that is worth bringing to the stage. If people paid to come see a show, like I want to talk about things that I feel like this is about like worth performing. And so I do think it is a thing of like, if another comic is doing a topic that is risky and they do a really good job and make it funny, by all means do it. So for me, I don't think there's anything really I wouldn't talk about. That being said, I have done some things where people will message me or DM me or send an email, and it really like I was like, oh, should I stop doing this? But similar to like again what Red you were saying was somebody's gonna like every joke in your set, somebody can find something to be offended by. So if you cut out every joke that offended one person, you wouldn't have a set. So I do think you kind of have to just like find that line of like, okay, am I actually an asshole, or is this person just being sensitive? And I ask myself that every night before I go to sleep. But I do think it's like if you genuinely believe in it and believe in it's funny, then you should keep it in your set. But hecklers, I have it's so funny, like I have such a similar thing to Ryan, is like I think because I look like a nice guy and friendly guy, that when I tell someone to shut the fuck up, it's not intimidating at all. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna fight you. They're like, oh, that's cute, I'll stop. So I kind of have the same approach as Ryan.
Love that. I mean, like you guys said, you can't please everybody all the time. And I think it's always best to make the best of any situation. So I love that it also applies to comedy. I know it's a very difficult art to learn to, but to hear you guys talk about it here, I think is really exciting as well. But we have another question coming from John Bueno of Cumacao. John asks, JR, this isn't your first time performing in the country, and I remember you telling a story about how you bombed a set after Alex Calleja. So how do you deal with jokes that don't land smoothly?
You know what? That one I blame Alex. He was just too good that night. My jokes
We've all
are
been
great.
there.
No, I mean Alex he was just so strong that night, and he was just like really good, and the crowd just like loved him so much. I don't even want to tell that story again. I wanted to erase it, but I keep telling it on every one of these press conferences, so I'll just tell it again. I did this show, it was for Valentine's Day. I think Alex went before me and he just crushed it so hard. And then and I was like still pretty new. I think I was like at that point I was probably 2 or 3 years in. And then I went up and did my set and I bombed pretty hard. And then they were like, "Oh, could you bring Alex back on?"
Oof.
And that was just the hardest I've ever bombed in my life. But that being said, I think if a joke doesn't work, like it's kind of like boxing. I think you just kind of have to keep going unless it's so obvious that it made the crowd feel awkward. But if a joke doesn't work, like it's I heard this metaphor, it's like flying a plane. Like if you have turbulence on the plane and you're the pilot and you're freaking out, then the passengers are going to get worried. But if there's turbulence and you have the confidence that you can land the plane, then they're going to be calm and just sit through the turbulence until you land. I feel the same way with my set, where it's like, okay, I have a few jokes that aren't working, but I know that I can do this well. I know I can, give you guys an entertaining show and make it to the end of my set. We can survive this, you guys. But yeah, I think that's my take on that. I mean, I think like you're funniest when you're with your grade school friends. Again, like saying dumb jokes. Like that, I was funnier than I am on stage now. Like I think just hanging out with friends and doing weird voices, like impersonating people, stuff like that. I think that's when I first knew like I could make people laugh. I wasn't like a class clown, but I was like the 3 or 4 kids around me. I would be really funny for those guys. And then my first stand-up set, I did okay, but in my head I was like amazing, and I was like, okay, I should get an HBO special now. How does this work? But yeah, my first stand-up set, the main thing I remember was there was I forgot some of my jokes and I started riffing. There was a blind lady in the audience and we started kind of riffing together, where like I guess when in doubt, I just like flirt with an audience member. I think like, and that was the one thing I remember from that first set.
Nice. I have a similar answer, I guess. Friends. That's what kind of got me into it. You make your friends laugh, and at the same time, I was watching more stand up. I was getting more interested into it, and then so just natural. It's like, maybe I could try this. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I'd be funny with strangers. My first time doing it was, I remember I was in college at the time. I was in Ateneo, and the only place I could do it was like this literary open mic. So it's like it's all poetry readings. People with these really short stories, and then me. And I same with JR. I felt it went really well. I do remember I got laughs, so it's not, I didn't bomb. Everyone was amused that I was there to tell jokes, so it was encouraging. And then soon after that, Red and I met na in Laugh-A-Palooza, and that was at that
We
time.
fell in love.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, same. It's well, first of all, thank you for the question, Madam Vice President. It's very joke lang, baka baka ma-article ako ng malala dito. No, yeah, the same lang. Like you start knowing you're funny with your friends. And I think I also started finding out I had an affinity towards funny people when I started hanging out with funny people. Like I've had like friends in high school that are like incredibly funny, and I'm just happy they didn't choose this profession because I'd be out of the job. So, you always find people in your life that are way funnier than you, and then that's when you realize that you have an affinity towards funny stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I think also with the things that you consume, if you tend to consume more funny stuff growing up, I think that would like kind of reflect on your personality.